I remember when I was 22 and there was a dude who I worked with who was about 35, and he said stuff that always kind of blew me away. I was like, oh my God, that's so wise, that's so true. And then when I got to 35, I started to think, oh, that was actually self-evident. You live enough life, you get to 35, and what had blown my mind at 22 now just felt like the complete obvious. And then that happened to me again. I remember hearing people in their 40s saying stuff to me when I was 35. I went, oh my God, that's so true. And I got there and the same thing happened. I was like, oh, that's kind of self-evident. And now, like, I'm 49, and there are writers who still say stuff that are older than me, and I go, oh, that's interesting. You get to a point where you live enough life, you experience shit over and over again, you no longer feel stuff to be true, but know it to be true. I always felt like I'm not good at writing. I only got good at writing by cheating, by getting older. And I kind of feel like that's how it works. You just get older and you exist and you see the repeat of patterns and how things work. And it's like people are actually just algorithms after a while. I know it's almost dehumanizing to say that, but it's just true. Like you live enough life and you start to think everyone's an NPC. Even myself, even the shit that I do is almost like I'm a bloody robot. The stuff I start to think, that's just what I do. All these stupid patterns, and it makes sense to do it. And of course you can question them and try and do it different way and all that sort of stuff, but basically sometimes I feel like when I'm writing I'm just an algorithm. I'm a Darby algorithm doing the same old shit. But I love when you just put enough information and facts and thoughts and stories and shit you see, and watching birds fly from trees, and you see that stuff over and over again, and your unconscious starts to do the heavy lifting. And that's when the magic happens, when you start saying, when your first thought becomes the most interesting thought, not the 100th. Like, I always feel like when I'm writing, I'll write a shitload of ideas, and it's either the first thought or the 100th thought that's the most interesting idea. And I always feel like all those thoughts, if it's not the first thought that comes up that's the best idea, it'll be the 100th thought. And I always think that if it is the 100th thought, then all those thoughts leading up to it are just me getting in the way of myself. And I've always thought my best stuff, I didn't write it, but my worst stuff, I wrote it. So when I write something good, I never feel like I'm allowed to sort of put my name to it, because it came from elsewhere. It came from some kind of magical unconscious place that happened just through collecting so much shit over years and years. And this is going everywhere, but it's also the reason why I've always read authors who are older than me. I kind of feel like it doesn't matter, even if the author is a first-time writer who was a tradesman their whole life, doesn't have a PhD or whatever. I'd rather read that than someone who's younger than me and has 10 PhDs specialised in their subject. I kind of feel like life is the most interesting teacher, not the new and modern, fashionable, trendy thoughts on things. I kind of feel like, oh yes, because we know a lot of stuff, and then science comes along and proves what we already feel to be true. I always feel like that sort of stuff. There's new studies, and new studies will turn up, and you go, yeah, we already felt that to be true. Like, and you'll say it too. A lot of people say it. You just happens all the time. Like, anyway, where was I going with all this? But yeah, just age. I love the idea that age is getting older is kind of a form of cheating when it comes to writing, because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to practice it. You do have to practice at writing to a certain degree, but you could just exist and you take on all this stupid life, and it just happens. I remember when I tried to apply for an art school when I was 18, and they said, oh, you've got to live a bit more. You got to get to 35 or just have some more life experience. And I took that like it was a blow to my ego when I was 18, and they said, yo, you've got some good technique and stuff, but you need to live more. And I thought it was just like, I was thinking, oh, that's bullshit. I know enough stuff, but it's true. At the age of 49 now, I go, yeah, it's just true. Then there's something against that, where musicians often write their best stuff, or it seems to me they do, when they're younger, in their 20s, and writers and filmmakers seem to make their best stuff, for me, in their much older. Like the Alfred Hitchcocks and the Milan Kunderas, and then there's the Kurt Cobains, much younger, who are making music. So I always wondered, maybe that's why folk singers are often middle-aged, because they're somewhere between music and storytelling. Maybe it's that sort of middle ground between old age and youth. But yeah, it's true. Like, I can't read anyone younger than me, and sometimes I think, is that arrogant? Am I missing out on stuff that could be interesting? I kind of feel like humor can often be done by younger people pretty well, but it often lacks some kind of a wisdom. Like, I think Louis C.K. talked about, like, he didn't get good until he was into his 40s, and then there's Bukowski's editor, who said the best writers sort of start to happen in their late 30s, early 40s. By then they've been around the cycles of life a few times, and then they can start to make shit happen. But it's funny that a lot of writers come into themselves, that just coming into themselves in their late 30s, early 40s, because especially when that's like body clock time to have a family. Like women can really have kids between 30 and 42 at the absolute latest, and that's kind of almost the time when writers come into themselves at the same time. So there's often this kind of fork in the road. Do you go full blast on writing, and do you miss out on the whole sort of cultural, have family, spread your genes, do that? Or do you have a family, or do you write? And you can do both, of course, but it's going to be difficult. And I've seen a lot of writers have families and write at the same time, but they never seem to say where they get their money from or how they buy their time. That's never really revealed. And so yeah, it's always an interesting thing, that sort of between 30 and 40 is an interesting time where people have to make big decisions. And culturally, there's this move where the birth rate is dropping off, and there's this massive cultural push to creativity. I don't think I've ever seen more books on how to be creative in my entire life than in the past 2 or 3 years. Every single person's releasing some book on how to be creative. Even I did 2 or 3 years ago. I'm even tempted to take that, just pull that book now. I still like it, and a lot of people have got some good shit out of it. But yeah, I've never seen more books on how to be creative than in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's to do with social media and being able to make art and make a living off your art, which is nuts. And I've only been able to do it because of it in the last 2 or 3 years. But and then there's the birth rate dropping off at the same time, and maybe they're correlated, maybe they're not. But yeah, there's no such thing as coincidence as Michael Connelly, the writer of those detective novels, Harry Bosch. I love him. I read him. But Michael Connelly also talked about how he didn't have a family until he was into his 50s. Oh no, late 40s, I think, because he said to his wife, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this career of going from a crime journalist to becoming a crime writer possible. He said it was either or. I have to do this. I have to make this happen by going 110% at this thing, or I have a family. And yeah, if unless you've got some money hidden away somewhere, which I think a lot of people who are able to make bestseller lists and have a big family at the same time must have some kind of hidden funding somewhere. but good on it. Good on them if they do as well. But yeah, it's not often talked about, and so yeah, Michael Connelly put a family on hold until he was in his late 40s, and his first few novels had taken off, and he was able to go, okay, I can do this. I've got a safety net. This can work. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Where did I go with this? I was talking about writing and bringing experience to your work just simply by living, but all the weird sacrifices or big life things that you got to either put off or not put off to make creativity happen. It's an interesting one, and yeah, there are no easy paths. There's no correct path, and yeah. Anyway, if you'd like to leave a review of this on not TikTok, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, or YouTube, comment on YouTube, because I'm filming this on YouTube as well. You actually see the beautiful tree in the background, and crutches in the back of my car. I just got over an Achilles injury. I've got to return the crutches. Anyway, see ya.